Hey, thanks so much for joining us on a frank conversation, ramping things up again right here on 10 Tampa Bay Plus as well, so we could show it to you as a visual medium, and you can get the audio as well. And I'm joined by Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister. Thanks so much for hanging with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, we struck up a conversation a couple of weeks ago at an event, and almost lost track of the good things that were going on at that event with Derek Brooks and all the amazing things he does in the community, because we started talking about another topic very important to you, as it should be to everybody, as we discuss mental health awareness. It's Mental Health Awareness Month this month, but this is a topic that's pertinent 365.
Yeah, our quick hello that we normally see each other, because you're so gracious at different charity events, giving your time. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, I'm glad to see that you're okay after your little bout with Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yes.
But you're exactly right. Our conversation, our light conversation started taking a turn. 15 minutes later, we both had to be pulled away like, hey, you have a job to do, and I had to get into the event as well. But thank you. Thanks for having us here today. We're so grateful to be a part of it.
Well, we're glad to have you, and definitely blessed to have you discuss this topic. As it pertains to mental health, this is all encompassing. And you made something very much apparent as you said this off camera just a moment ago. Sometimes we don't have this conversation until it's too late.
This is the most important thing we can do in terms of mental health, and that's talk about it.
Sure.
The more we'll talk about it, the more we'll erase that negative stigma that is surrounded by mental health, and people having the courage to come forward and saying, hey, listen, I need some help.
Now, you're in a space where conversations like this were not always welcome, and you kind of alluded to this when we were talking about this topic a few weeks ago, because honestly, you have to present yourselves in a position of authority, and sometimes you can't always let on to emotions that are actually being felt in that moment. And that sometimes kind of covers up how you really feel about things.
It absolutely does. We're always the first ones to see things that no human being should have to see, and the last ones to ask for help. So that's where, when we talked about in terms of mental health, we started internally and grew from there.
How did you do that, though? Because going into an environment where this is a topic that's not openly discussed, or had not been, you want to normalize the conversation now. It wasn't always openly discussed. How did you approach that? You're
exactly right, and you and I were talking at that event. Back then, you had 42 minutes that you got off during a 12-hour shift, and the supervisor would say, okay, you know, I know that was a tough scene, I know that was traumatic, go ahead and take the extra 18 minutes, take the full hour, you know, or 12 minutes, I'll see you, I'll see you, and get right back in. I'm like, hold on a second. Now we handle things totally different. You and I were discussing, when we have a critical incident now, we bring every deputy who was involved, and I'll use, as, if I may, as an example, the 2 deputies were the guy that was suffering from a mental health episode and ran over our 2 deputies, and they were injured. You know, there was a lot of emotion surrounding that, from the way they handled the bad guy to, okay, now that's our buddies, our co-workers, you know, friends, our families hang out together. How are they going to handle this? So we started now, after critical incidents, we bring everybody in and we talk about it right there. We're very fortunate with the resources that the Sheriff's Office has. We have a full-time clinical psychologist. So what I asked Frank is, I said, listen, all of you come in. I want all of you to spend a couple minutes with her. You don't have to see her the second time, the third time, and some of them have, and some of them continue to see her. But I asked for a favor. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to ask that if you want to have follow-up with her, she's at your disposal. Like, almost like inviting them to have the conversation.
What's the feedback that you've gotten from folks on the force?
It's been great. The last 2 years since I brought a clinical psychologist in and we started having these incident debriefs, when I asked after the first 30 days, hey, how's it going? I was talking to the doctor and I was asking her, how's it going? She's like, I'm booked out 6 months. I'm like, well, it's time to increase your hours here, which made me feel so happy. At the same time, I was concerned, had to fix something. At the same time, I knew we had turned the corner. I knew we had turned the corner to where people are asking for help. Whether it's family stress, is it parental stress, is it financial stress, is it something that they're dealing with? And we all know the best way to deal with something is to talk to somebody. Try to process those feelings. We may be talented, some of the most talented human beings in the world. Doesn't mean you're equipped to handle the emotions that come with some type of traumatic incident.
You know, you hear that adage sometimes, hey, You leave your problems at the door. You check your problems at the door. That sounds great.
Exactly.
In theory,
Come to work.
Yeah, but we're not robots.
No.
We're actually people who work with the general public. So, there's probably a lot of baggage that some individuals were carrying along with them. Maybe some of it they didn't even realize they were bringing with them.
To your point, back in 2017 is when I immediately knew that we needed to do more. Within a year, we had 2 deputies that shot and killed their family members, their loved ones, and then turned to violence to themselves and took their own life. And these were members of the office who weren't problematic. There was nothing. Glowing reviews, they did a wonderful job.
Would have never known.
Never known in a million years. You're that much more surprised. Wasn't a problematic employee. This is someone, again, who was the go-getter. I want to be like this person. How does this happen? And I knew we needed to do more resources that we would have available for employees. We talked about the clinical psychologist. We also have the employee assistance program. We have a faith-based program. And then we have another program where there's a group of doctors that they can go to. It can even be as easy as logging online, get an appointment if they want to do it from the comfort of their own home. I knew that if there was a resource out there, we would have it.
It would seem you have somewhat made yourself vulnerable by leading this way and being willing to discuss this, insisting that we have these conversations. How important is it for the men and women that you lead to see you in the thick of things?
I think you have to lead from the front. In any type of career field, it's no different in law enforcement, maybe even more critical. You have to lead from the front. And leading from the front is making sure that help's available and that everyone knows that it's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay not to ask for help. And
so you yourself know when that happens because you're no different.
I'm no different. I'm out at these scenes too. I see these horrific scenes too. And I'm very fortunate that I have a great family group of support that I can talk to and work through some things, whether it's my wife and some of my friends that are outside of law enforcement, and that I can work through these emotions. Because I promise you this, if I didn't have that or I thought it was a little too much for them and I needed to go see somebody, I'd be the first in line.
What were you doing to incentivize these conversations initially? Because you said eventually the individual who's helping you all out became booked several months out. How did you get people to at least dip a toe into the water?
Did it by bringing her into the group, I hate to say group therapy, but group situations, and being there with the troops to have these conversations. And when we're sitting there having these conversations, we brought some faith-based leaders in. So they were here, we had our doctor here, and we were going to have the conversations. I think it helped bridge the gap where they were willing to ask for help. Hey, listen, this was great. Can I come see you again?
Sure.
And when we were all there, the whole command staff, we came in and we had the conversation together. And then we knew that they would feel more comfortable talking probably a little more in depth without us. So we knew there was a point where it was time for us to excuse ourselves and let them really have that real conversations without any type of even likelihood or perception of someone was judging them.
What are some of the frequently asked questions when it comes to this? Because you bring in new folks periodically to this profession. What are some of the frequently asked questions when it comes to mental wellness?
I think it goes back to the why. We are very reactive. If a suspect becomes more violent, if they do this, we then are reactionary, right? So if it's say the shooting the other day, and I was talking to the deputies where the guy had the railroad spike and threatened to kill at the worship center, to kill the priest. And we got there and was charging around our deputies over the head and bouncing around and acting very reactive as they kept trying to de-escalate the situation and created more distance while they continued to deploy less lethal options and create that dialogue, and it was ineffective. All of it was ineffective. But I know when I was involved in my shooting and my use of deadly force way back when, you ask yourself why. Why didn't they just drop the gun? Why didn't he just drop the railroad spike? And we could have placed him on arrest. Why didn't the taser work? Why didn't the bolo wrap work? Why didn't this? So I think the biggest obstacle, to your point, is you ask yourself why. I remember going home after my use of deadly force, and you're by yourself, and it all has time to set in. You've been interviewed, you've talked to the state attorney, you've done everything. You go home, they have your gun, they take your gun so they can process your gun, and then you go home and now you have to process it. It's no different than last week, where unfortunately the mom suffering from mental health took the life of her 3-year-old baby and then took her own life. And I think when you go in and you see this scene and you see that the way she killed her child and then the way she killed herself, and I think the first thing we always ask, why? Why? What could we have done as a community? What could we have done as a deputy, as a sheriff's office? What could we have done to mitigate that so this doesn't happen? So people don't become violent towards themselves, their loved ones, the community, law enforcement, whatever the case may be.
When something like that happens, that casualty is recorded, and we try to rectify the situation internally so that we can handle things differently when we go back out into the public. But sometimes that's not the only casualty. You may lose a part of yourself. 100%.
100%. We send, a few years ago, we sent all of the members of our sheriff's office, even civilian staff, and the max hours was 80 hours in mental health training. And I would hope that they would get something out of it to be able to use from themselves, but most of it, to your point, most of it was to identify someone that's in some type of mental health crisis. Is it PTSD? Is it some type of drug-induced mental health crisis to where they can identify it and then try to de-escalate appropriately now because they understand what they're seeing? But a lot of it is about service to others. It's not a lot with that self-reflection of, okay, how am I going to process this myself?
Right.
That's the part I think that's always been missing. We're good at going taking care of other people, some of the best in the business. Where we need to improve and where do we need to get better is taking care of ourselves.
How hard is it to look in the mirror?
It's tough sometimes. I tell you, one of the roughest things, and I always prayed when I became the sheriff I didn't have to do, is when we lost a deputy. And I had to go into the hospital and tell the family that their loved one had passed away. And it took a toll on me. It took a toll on me. I mean, even talking to my wife, talking to my normal avenues, like it took a toll. Like I at the funeral, I couldn't compose myself to go up, and I had to lead the 4,000 employees here, and I had to go up and speak at the funeral, and I had to get it together, and you try to be tough, and at the end you just sit it. I had to take a couple extra days off. I needed to decompress, and I was fortunate that, again, like I don't think I can ever discount the fact that has a wife like I do that sacrifices so much. It's like she wants to know. And sometimes I'm like, I try to shield her, and then she gets more upset. She gets more mad. She's like, no, we're going through this together. If I'm going to sacrifice time while you're out of the house and we're going to events and we're going to be out in the community, I need you to be completely transparent and keep it 100% real with me. And I try to, and I'm able to have those conversations. It helps.
They're fantastic, aren't they?
Again, goes back to what we said when we first started this. Have to have the conversations.
Yeah. And so tough, that definition of toughness kind of gets recalibrated, right? It has to.
I tell people all the time, tough isn't going through it. Tough is having the strength to ask for help when you need it to be able to process this. Work through it.
Tell me who you are now versus who you were when you first put on that badge, because you've had to evolve several times.
A lot has changed. Law enforcement's evolved so much in the last 32 years.
Has it been 32 years?
32 years. Wow. February was 32 years. I'm working on year 33.
Congrats.
Thank you. But everything's changed. The way we police, our strategies, even the way we take care of our employees. I was fortunate to get sent one of a small group of people that ever get to go to the FBI National Academy. So it's 90 days, you're in Quantico, and you pick the classes you want. And I took a health and wellness class, and it had to do with a lot of law enforcement officers that see it. And what's the unhealthy alternative? The unhealthy alternative is they turn to the pill bottle, to the liquor bottle. And there's not enough healthy alternatives to employees that are facing or trying to work through their feelings. And you remember the old TV movies. It was real. You know, the TV shows, where did they all go?
Yeah.
They all met at the bar afterwards. They all met at the bar afterwards. They all went here. It wasn't anything healthy. No one went home, right? Because you went home and you sat in front of the TV and you just needed some time to like shut it down. So, you know, we work very hard to change that. I never thought, you talk about the changes that I've been able to make in coming forward. I mean, we have a personal trainer now. I know fitness is a healthy outlet with different gyms that we have around the county. The community and the county commission's been phenomenal getting those resources. We have a nutritionist. We have a personal trainer.
You're doing this for Instagram.
We do it. Boxing. We teach boxing lessons. We have yoga.
Awesome.
We have yoga for our employees.
Things have changed.
3 days a week. Whoever thought we'd be teaching yoga?
Yeah.
You know, yoga. We have meditation classes.
Wow.
Now, the existing employees, it's optional. Everyone that goes through the academy now has to go to meditation classes. We force them to go yoga, meditation. Again, letting them know that, hey, it's a different culture. And you said it earlier. The culture has to start with me.
Yeah.
It has to start with me. They have to know that I'm buying into it and that I believe in it too. So I implement the program. I told them before, and I meant it. If we have to open up a book club, if we have to, if we need to open a book club, because that's another healthy alternative for our employees to come to and be able to do as a family. We have a family day where they can bring their families, and a lot of it was a family health day, and they came in, and a lot of families, now they're with their families talking about their struggles with maybe a child that has autism, and they didn't know that we had some of the benefits available that could get them some help. So they were immediately relieved. And again, stayed there for a while and then knew it was time to excuse myself so they could be even more open and honest without thinking that someone was judging them. But they called me later that day on a Saturday and told me how well it went, and they're looking forward to have the next one again. Having the conversation. Sometimes you just have the conversation. You didn't know help was available. You didn't know our health care plan paid for some special help, some special education that would help you and reduce some of that stress that you and your wife are going through as parents.
Is there a concern that I imagine there must be a concern that with what you see on a daily basis, it's not always a bad day. It's not always a great day. Some days may be a bit mundane, but by and large, people outside the walls of your office, they don't understand you. Is there a sense that maybe you're just not understood because you don't see the things that, or normal people don't see the things that you see on a daily basis, the things that you have to endure?
Yeah, 100%. Such a great point. We team up often with the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, and they now have a dedicated person for law enforcement, first responders, and military. So when one of our employees had the strength to come forward and said, hey, I need some help, and they make that anonymous call, they make that call, now they're talking to someone who doesn't say, hey, I understand what you're going through. No, you don't. You've never been a police officer. You've never been a paramedic and seen a horrific scene, or a firefighter. You've never been in the military. You didn't see what I saw. You know, all the tragedy and the death over and over and over again, and being that constant state of vigilance and not knowing how to come down off of that. And it's amazing now to have resources in our Tampa Bay area, like the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, that there's a dedicated number just for them, that they can call and talk to someone on the other line who's a retired law enforcement officer, if that's applicable, and can say, listen, I know what you're going through. Let's work through it.
We've talked about where we've been, where we are right now. What would you like to see? What would you like to add to this menu in terms of the resources that we could have available for folks out there?
I think we've come a long way. You're exactly right. But a lot of the resources are focused on someone who's already in mental health crisis. I think we needed to continue to do more to be more preventative. That's where we can grow. Well, if you come to the Hillsborough County, one of our jail facilities, for whatever you find yourself incarcerated, what we do is, if you're willing to get the help, we'll do some tests. Maybe you're on medication and you need additional medication. Maybe you need stronger medication. Maybe you need a totally different medication. We get you that medication. When you leave our detention facility, you have 30 days of that medication until we can follow up with you and try to get you the help that you need. We've made great stride in our schools. Now with the legislator realizing mental health, we're seeing more counselors and more treatment counselors and clinicians in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. We still have a long way to go, but how about starting a conversation and a relationship and having those conversations, an informal conversation with someone you say, hey, Mr. such and such or Miss such and such, and be able, as a child, they're under more pressure than we ever were as kids. Right? If you don't have the certain type of clothing, or your parents don't drive a certain car, you're a failure, or they don't have enough zeros in the bank account. Absolutely. Or what neighborhood do you live in? You know, what do you have for lunch? Do you have enough money for lunch? They're under all types of peer pressure, societal pressure with reality TV, and the list goes on and on and on. So I think where we can improve is more resources to try to be there and make this resource available for our young people. Our young people, and more preventive services for adults. We've done a great job, again, of having more clinics for people suffering. We need more resources available for someone who recognizes something's not right. I don't have the money, I don't have the insurance. What resources are available that I'm willing to talk to somebody? I don't have the financial whereabouts to do it. That's the resource. The preventative arm, that's where we can focus more on, and that's where we have an opportunity to improve.
The root of all this seems to be relationships. Can you speak to the importance of strong relationships and how to foster that?
Yeah, and there's no magic wand, especially in law enforcement. There's no, hey, listen, here's a magic wand. Everyone loves law enforcement, and
Right.
if law enforcement doesn't have that trust, that faith and confidence from their community, you're going to be ineffective. And unfortunately, that is one place where you have to earn it every day. You earn it every relationship, you earn it every encounter, and we can see halfway across the country where there's a negative encounter and we all suffer because of it. And I want to make sure that with the training, the tools, the equipment, the resources, who we hire, how we train them, how we supervise them, that they have what they need to make sure someone doesn't turn a TV on and say, hey, I recognize that deputy, he lives here.
Gotcha. And what are you extremely proud of that you can say is an overarching theme with this as we wrap this conversation up about mental health?
I'm extremely proud of the progress we've made as a community, as a society, as an agency in terms of mental health and removing the negative stigma and the number of individuals asking for help. I'm proud of that. Even in our detention facility, we have a mental health pod with the incentive, let's get you healthy so you can get back to general population, you get back to your family. So again, if you come in and you're willing to recognize that you need help and you're willing to get that help, we have a health. I tell people, and it sounds like I'm saying this in jest, the largest mental health hospital is, and one of the largest in the state, is right here in our detention facility, getting people the help that they need.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Sheriff, that I did not ask?
I think you pretty much covered everything. We've covered prevention, we've covered treatment, we've covered the stigma that comes with it. We talked about specialized services, our training, services that are available for deputies, for individuals, whether it's first responders, law enforcement, and military. I think we pretty much covered. Did I miss anything, Jerry?
It'd be negligent on my part to not ask this, and it should have been at the top of the conversation. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy. I'm a very happy guy. Our academies are full. Crime was down 8.2% last year, and when you have all this influx of population, as we know, another 12% growth here, 25% growth that will continue to come over the next several years, to be able to lower crime 8.2%, and then year to date, since I've seen you, I've gotten a recent update, and that crime is down 15%. So the men and women are just doing an incredible job, and we're out in the community. Like I've seen you, several places where you're generous with your time, donating your time. And when you have an agency filled with 4,000 people, you have to be. It's critical to be a part of that fabric of that community. And that's why we're out there in the community, whether it's PTA, whether it's a charitable organization. We have a community outreach division, and we're out there too. We know that we have some phenomenal resources here in Tampa Bay, and we know how special it is. We don't take it for granted. How do we continue to supplant that and promote that cause as well, to make sure that everyone, regardless of who you are, has an equitable opportunity to education, to whatever resources that you may need. It could be cereal for summer.
Sure.
All the way to, hey, listen, I have a mental health problem. It's how do we recognize that and come together as a community? Our whole Tampa Bay community gets stronger every time we help an individual in need.
Love it. Well, Sheriff Chad Chronister, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for hanging with us on the Frank Conversation. Until next time, take care of you and yours.